So hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 20th of June 2025 and before we go any further, I just want to kind of open with this shot that came in on the 15th of June, just gone, by Mr. MBB333. It's an absolutely epic shot, and it's absolutely everything I told you you're going to see. I've got this kind of whole get-up going on here with the microphone and the headphones and everything else like that, because it's the only good microphone I've got, and obviously my computer's not going to pick up my my voice with the engine running. But hopefully, like this, you'll be able to get my voice, and there'll be a little bit of interference. But I'm not going to be able to show any other overlays. But what else do I need to show you? What else do I need to show you? I mean, I can add the overlays after this when I edit this video. So, but I haven't got. I'm heading down to Honey Street now for the Solstice. So I'm going to go up to. So I'm going to be going up to Avebury, and Honey Street's the closest place I can get to Avebury. So so what I'll do is I'll pull up or moor up in Pewsey, which is basically the last kind of place I can sort a few bits out before I get to Honey Street. And I probably don't really need that much, really. I wouldn't mind doing a bit of a kind of like doing my toilet and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, another story, details you don't need to know about. But it's a lovely day. It's a spectacular day. It's a lovely day to go to the Stones, and of course, you know, Honey Street's right next to Silbury Hill and Avebury. Ironically, you know, on this side you've got Amesbury, and on this side on the north you've got Avebury, Amesbury and Avebury, and Stonehenge is very close to Amesbury, and Silbury Ring and the stone circle there is very close to Avebury. So it's always very confusing. So people often coming to go kind of do a bit of a tourist mission who don't know the area that well can, you know, think they're going to Avebury and then end up at Amesbury, or think they're going to Amesbury and then end up at Avebury, and either way they get lucky and get to a stone circle. But very often you hear about people coming down here and ending up at different stone circles because of the confusion of Avebury and Amesbury. But I'm off to Avebury because it's an hour's walk, or maybe some people say it's a 2 hours walk from Honey Street. But Shanti's going to love it, and it's the perfect day it's the perfect time for a solstice gathering. But let's just get back to this sighting that's just come in before we start talking about about the cosmic occurrence that's happening right now with the solstice. So this sighting, it came in from it was shot in British Columbia, so it was seen in the northern hemisphere, and not in the last neat moon. Well, I don't think it was the last neat moon. Where are we now? I'm just trying to think if we've gone past the neat moon. Yeah, I guess it would have been the last neat moon, the one after. So we're coming up to the new moon on the 26th of June, which kind of makes the dark moon on the 25th. But the 26th of June will also be this year. It will be the Islamic New Year as well, which is hopefully, if I turn the engine up a little bit, you're not going to hear it too much. There might be a little bit of interference, apologies about that, but so it'll be the Islamic New Year, and the last time it was in June would have been about 33 years ago, and so it's going to be the Islamic New Year. So the last, and we're going to talk more about that as well, but the last new moon, which had been a month ago, the neat moon after that, where it was in between new and full, we had the big volcanic eruption in Etna. Now Etna's a very kind of like a very active volcano, but it was a very unexpected. Not that the eruptions from Etna are kind of like unexpected, but because it's, like I say, it's a very active volcano. But normally there's a kind of build up and there's clues as to, you know, as to something is about to happen. But when you've got this object, which I'm showing you here, that Mr. MBB 333 is showing, coming in, and you know, in my last video I said, you know, you could see the tail of it. I showed you all the shots of the tail of it coming in, and I was saying, you know, you can't just, you know, I've been charting these objects for a very long time, and you know, many people might say that this is a cloud. Well, you know, we've seen these same clouds many times now, and they're massive celestial objects that are shrouded in an iron oxide tail, and the first big one that turned up that I predicted was obviously on the 20th. Well, not obviously, if you follow my channel or not, I don't know, but on the 20th of January 2017, ironically, in Trump's inauguration. And this is, I've been telling you, this is what you're going to see. It's going to, you know, and because it sits. The reason the earthquake, if you look at what happened in the tsunami and the earthquake that happened in 2004 that caused the tsunami on the 26th of December on Boxing Day, that happened either on the new or the full moon. You'll often see that some of the big activities fall either on the full or the new moon. Not to the exact, either they can be a day or two either side, but they can be also quite precise. That one was quite precise, I believe. Check my water temperature. But you'll notice that Fukushima and the big earthquake that happened in Sichuan province in China, that caused a massive amount of big buildings to collapse, and it was very unreported. It was listed as quite a small volcano really, and yet it caused so much damage. And that happened on the neat moon, like the Fukushima and the Sichuan earthquake in it was either May or June. I think it was May, around May the 12th, or you know, around about May the 12th, I think. It could have been June, but I think it was about May the 12th, 2008, which for me, I believe, was the precursor for the 2008 financial crash. And of course, when the big boys know that there's going to be a massive hit, that you know, real estate is going to take a hit, and of course there's massive revenue, there's massive money invested in property, that when the people in the know there's going to be a massive event like an earthquake, they pull their money out. And obviously we come up with our stories, or you know, the powers that be come up with their stories to basically always hide this system, because it's hid for many reasons. But they happened on the neat moon, and the reason they happen on the neat moon is when the moon is kind of aligned with the sun in full and in the new and the dark moon phases, they kind of sync up. It's kind of like, you'll notice that the moon hasn't moved that much further away from the Earth, and yet these are the highest points of the tide. And so this is the critical point, this aligning point, and they kind of lock into these points. But what happens is, if you've got a exoplanet or a planet that is not officially part of our official solar system, as you kind of understand it, and it's kind of north or south of the ecliptic and close to Earth, what will happen is the moon will come round, and when it gets in between the kind of full and the new state, it can be pulled down or up, depending whether the object, the exoplanet in question, is above or below the ecliptic. And it can pull the moon down, or it can pull the moon up, out of its normal ecliptic run. And this is why many people are observing the moon, the where you see the kind of like the crescent moon, it should never, that wherever you are on the planet, in terms of your latitude on the planet, wherever you are on the planet, your crescent moon should always be the same sort of angle. In India, it's like a cup. Here, it's like a crescent moon as you're on its side. Well, we've been getting the crescent moon like a cup, like they get it in India, and we've been getting it on its side and on its top and getting all sorts. And this occurrence has been happening all around the world. Unusual positions of the moon as you see it. It's not doing what it normally does, and this is an indication that it's coming above and below the ecliptic plane. And when we had 2011, it was the moon being pulled. At that stage, this object in question was below the ecliptic. It pulled the moon. It was in the southern. It was the exoplanet that was coming past. That caused Fukushima was in the southern aspect of our solar system, close to Earth, and it pulled our moon down, which meant that the oceans, the Pacific, was having a pull by the moon in the neap phase, pulling on the oceans in a place where it doesn't normally pull on the oceans. So it was putting it was bunching up, if you like, the Pacific on the Pacific plate, and that is, in my opinion, what caused that tsunami and causes the unusual shifts. And so we can see that when these objects are around, if these objects are in between Earth, if an exoplanet is in between Earth and the Sun, and we get a new moon, so the moon is also in between Earth and the Sun, and then you get an exoplanet that joins up. This is when we can have quite big earthquakes and volcanoes. So we could see raised seismic activity on the 26th of June, on the Islamic New Year's Day. It's quite likely that we're going to see quite a lot of volcanoes go off around that time. It's certainly going to be increased activity. It depends where the object is. It's like the needle of a compass, and wherever it is, that alignment, when the moon aligns up with it, wherever it is, it will amplify it. So it could be before, it could be after. It depends where this object is sitting exactly at the time as we get closer to the 26th. So we've got that to think about, and we've also got the neap moon to think about, because if we're seeing this object in the northern hemisphere now, and it's very close to us, we're much more likely to actually have a bigger effect on the first neap moon after the new moon. So I can't remember what month we're now, June. I'm not too sure how many days are in June, whether it's 30 or 31, but let's say it's 31, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 31. So around about the 2nd of July we could expect quite a bit of activity as well. And this object you could also call, that's flying by, in the most Shakespearean sense, remembering that the first play of the Shakespeare of the first play was ever performed of one of Shakespeare's plays was performed 2 years after the Spanish Armada was kind of scuttled in 1588. So just remember what happened. We've got Sir Francis Drake playing bowls in Plymouth, right down at the bottom of England, on the coast, and the largest fleet to ever set sail is sailing by, and he is master and commander of the fleet, and he's playing bowls, and he's not engaging in a defensive move against this attack. Just completely disengaged, a bit like Assad did when suddenly the attack came in. We could see that you could say that Assad was a coward and he didn't engage, but you could also see that maybe in the art of war, there's knowing when you excuse me. Maybe in the art of war is knowing when you can attack and defend, and when you've got to withdraw, and know the time when you can be drawn into a battle, and know the times when you shouldn't be drawn into a battle. And the reason I say that is because oh, excuse me, sorry about that, something went down the wrong way there. Because we had the same situation going on with Sir Francis, was it Sir Francis Drake, Master and Commander of the Fleet? Yeah, he was being instructed by Elizabeth I to not engage the fleet. And so the fleet had sailed by, and you can imagine that all the troops were waiting in France to be ferried across to the battlefield, which would have been Britain, to end the Protestant movement and to reinstate Catholic rule and kill all the Protestants. And of course that didn't happen. What actually happened was they didn't engage the fleet. The fleet sailed by, and then when they went into battle formation, Elizabeth commanded Sir Francis Drake to set fire to half the fleet, much against his wishes. It caused near mutinies on the boats, and they were told that the captains were told that this wind was going to blow up and would blow the burning fleet into the Spanish Armada, and it would destroy the Spanish Armada. Of course, that was just like, what are you talking about? You're absolutely mad. This is our only chance to stop these ships bringing the troops from France to England. We've got to take them out. If we don't take them out, we're finished. So everyone was just like, this must be. They're either mad or they're actually on the Catholic side, and something's gone really mad. Something's gone really wrong. But the instructions were followed when this breeze started building up, and they were like, well, maybe they're right. So eventually they did set fire to the ships, and sure enough, the burning fleet goes up and starts going into this moored armada. That's there just ferrying, getting all the troops on board, ready to be ferried across to England to begin the killing. To begin the Spanish Inquisition on English land, which had already started with Mary, Bloody Mary, who was Elizabeth's sister, and Aragon's, Catherine of Aragon's daughter, that was the first one that Henry VIII divorced, and then started the beheading and blah 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 and all the rest of it. Anyway, another story, but. It was she basically died giving birth. Well, she wasn't even pregnant. She actually had cancer, but everyone thought she was about to give birth, and Elizabeth was locked in the Tower of London waiting to be executed, and they just needed a mandate and to stop it. They couldn't go ahead, and it's a bit like now with Iran for America and Britain. They can't go forward and just go and invade and basically chop their head clean off the Iranian leadership, as in chop the head off Elizabeth, because there would have been a riot, there would have been a revolution, there would have been a coup, it would have backfired. They needed a mandate, they needed the people behind them, and in that time they needed Mary to give birth and to have a son. Then they had a legitimate heir. Then they could just waltz Elizabeth to the chopping block, have her head chopped off, and they'd be done with it. So they were going to wait until Elizabeth gave birth. And so in the same sense right now was what's happening. They're kind of desperate, but both Britain and America are desperately looking for a mandate to kind of join Israel. But unless something happens imminently, because Israel hasn't got that much time, because they're getting hammered at the moment. I know I'm bleeding these stories, but you're going to see they're all going to start coming together, and you're going to see why I'm bringing all these different stories together, because all these situations, these cycles have always been the same since the 1600s. Ever since we've been reinventing this blue planet that turns up every 84 years, we go through these same big cycles, these same warring cycles. And so So we're on a bit of a confused timeline, but like I say, all these stories are mirror each other. And anyway, so Mary didn't give birth. She died with a tumour that was growing in her womb, which was very fortunate because everyone thought she was pregnant, and she wasn't pregnant. She was dying of cancer. And the day she dies of cancer, Elizabeth is brought down from the tower. She would have thought she would have been about to be executed. She's brought down from the tower and crowned Queen of England, and she promptly kicks all the Catholics out. I've got a boat coming up here. She promptly kicks all the Catholics out, and so begins her reign. And then, of course, there's a massive reprisal, and the Spanish build this massive fleet. Remember, Sir Francis Drake, master and commander of the fleet, had got an incredible reputation of stealing the Spanish gold that the Spanish were stealing from the Americas. You know, all this gold that they'd plundered, and Britain was taking it from them. Whenever they caught a ship, they had superior kind of like naval abilities, apparently, and they kept taking the Spanish silver. They kept taking the Spanish gold, Spanish treasure. So the Spanish, you know, it wasn't just that they wanted to. It just wasn't just that they wanted to punish Britain for the whole Protestant movement, and enact the Spanish Inquisition on English land. They wanted to punish English for all the gold that we were stealing, or Sir Francis Drake was stealing. And so there was a lot of anger. This anger had been sown into the whole story over quite a period, and so it was all building up. And finally, it kind of, you know, how the information was bled to the Spanish, because in many ways Spain was becoming a threat to Rome to the Vatican, because they were becoming so powerful. They were becoming more powerful than the Vatican itself. That, you know, so was it possibly that the Vatican had told them that they'd got to attack Britain on this day, thinking that they could kind of bring two birds, they could kind of kill two birds with one stone? A bit like trying to set, you know, when I wrote my book Laughing Gas about Britain being used as the Trojan horse to break up the European alliance and feed Europe into a war with Russia. So two birds could be killed with one stone, and thus, you know, all the weapons that Britain and Europe would have to buy off America during this massive kind of war would make America great again. And plus, it would annihilate two powers. It would certainly kind of reduce the kind of strength of two powers and bring them back in line, so they weren't a threat to America, or in that case the Vatican. So I'm sorry, we're bleeding another story into this, but they all mirror each other. That's why I could write Laughing Gas, because these are all the same stories. There's all the same modus operandi. It's all the same pattern that's been going on. World War I, World War II, right back all the way through. These are the same stories, the same patterns over and over and over. So all these stories kind of mimic each other. So we're telling kind of lots of threads of stories here. But got another boat coming through here, so sorry about this. I'm just kind of focusing my attention here as well. It's a busy day on the water, and I got a long way to go. I'll have to put my foot down in a bit, so hopefully the noise of the engine won't be. So all these stories are going to start coming together anyway. Excuse me, sorry about that. So back to staying with the Spanish Armada now. So they set fire to the fleet. The fleet gets burned. It gets blown by this growing wind into the moored Armada that has been taken out of battle formation. A bit like what happened with in Pearl Harbor, where this idea that all the ships were going to be there it led to America entering the Second World War. It couldn't enter the Second World War unless it was attacked, and this is relevant as well. Unless it was attacked, because sometimes you need to be attacked to engage in a war because you can't get the public support. A bit like what happened in Israel. Israel couldn't have done all that it had done to Palestine unless it was attacked by Hamas, unless October the 7th had happened, which some could see to be quite fortuitous for Israel, because they've really taken full advantage of that situation, it seems, and not just taken on Palestine, they seem to have taken on a lot of countries just lately, so sorry, I'm just going past another little boat here, or another big boat. So the burning fleet gets blown into the docked, kind of like in kind of moored, anchored Spanish Armada. They some of the ships catch fire, and you've got this burning wall of fire now bunched up, moving towards the anchored Spanish Armada. They have no choice but to cut their anchors. They cut their anchors, and they think, we'll use this breeze to kind of cut round and navigate our way out of this situation and go further and sail around the burning British or the burning English ships. And but of course this breeze turns into the biggest storm that's hit England for centuries, if not millennia, and just blows the whole fleet away, gone with the wind. And of course Elizabeth was like a goddess after this. The biggest fleet to ever set sail, just gone with the wind. And then we have the works of Shakespeare that is released just after this, and the first play is performed 2 years after this. And of course this is the story that I tell in Laughing Gas. I retell in my book, in my own way, the first play in the works of Shakespeare, which was the Tempest. And the Tempest is about this massive storm that shipwrecks this ship with all of those that have wronged this wizard. Maybe not wronged him, but he's got a bone to pick with them. He's going to bring all he's got, a bone to pick, to the shores of his island by the magic he has. And the magic he has is he has this power over this thing. We don't really know what it is. It's some kind of spirit, it's some kind of something, some kind of magical thing that he's got that can create these massive storms. So big that they can shipwreck on command. So much so that in the case where we literally see Sir Francis Drake playing bowls, when the ships come round, he can be so assured of their destruction that he can just sit there playing bowls, knowing that he hasn't got anything to worry about. This is literally what happened. And so the story kind of follows in the same way, and it's a story of redemption, but it's also a story of forgiveness. It's a bit of a romance, a story in the classic kind of Shakespearean kind of like sense, but you're left with this kind of wonder, what is Ariel? And why is something to do with the air? It's up there somewhere. And of course this is the great secret that they've had for a very long time, and to know the real kind of orbital mechanics of the planets, and to kind of like lure your enemies to attack you when Ariel is flying by. And of course this is Ariel. We're literally seeing it coming in now, and we're coming into June, July, and when was the Spanish Armada scuttled? What month was it scuttled? July. And so you can see what's happening here, because it's looking like all this kind of, the biggest challenge for America is not for them, it's for them to look like they're going to attack, but what they really want, what they'd love to do most of all, is sell Israel the deep bunker busters themselves and get Israel to do it. They're not going to do it. They're going to try and make it seem as if they're going to do it, but unless of course they are going to do it, unless of course they are stupid enough to do this at this time. But Israel's been fed into this, because Israel will just do this because they can be led. When you enter into a religious doctrine, especially if you enter into a religious doctrine where you believe you're special, and this isn't a Jewish doctrine, this is a Zionist doctrine. And though you could say Zionists are Jews, as the last president said, I'm almost forgetting his name now. That's how bizarre. His name's just suddenly disappeared out of my head. I'm forgetting as forgetful as he gets now. But he said you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist. And you've got to think about that, what he means by that. Because it's clear that Trump is a Zionist, but is Trump a Jew or is Trump a Christian? And these are the things we've got to think about here, is what is the Zionist agenda? And the real agenda here is to get your enemies to go into a state of war when this thing flies by, when you're right next to this thing. So your enemies go under the wheels, effectively, of Earth's real creator gods. Because you imagine, if you create Earth, if you create a planet anywhere, and your creation goes septic and spews war, hatred, depleted uranium bombshells, and savage kind of like aggression into the greater universe and all around, and we're kind of doing that. We've got our weapons out in space now. We're dumping, we've just blown up. Israel's just blown up a nuclear reactor in Iran. It's just like, this is just acceptable. This is just acceptable. They're being punished for being intelligent enough to develop nuclear power stations. They're being punished for that. They're not being punished for a crime. They haven't invaded another nation in centuries, and yet they're being punished for being intelligent enough to develop nuclear fission based. I don't agree with nuclear power anyway, but those people that are dumping depleted uranium bombshells on their enemies are kind of like, look what Britain and America have done in Iraq and in Afghanistan. All these depleted uranium bombshells, all the stuff that we do, and then to turn around all the amount of depleted uranium bombshells that have been detonated on the borders of Iran and Iraq. It's just like, if there's any countries that can demonstrate nuclear irresponsibility, it's Britain and America. We're the last people that can be talking about. You can see why our governments perceive anyone having nuclear technology as bad, because of what we do with it ourselves. But that doesn't mean everyone wants to just be constantly invading other nations. Not everyone thinks like our governments. Well, clearly the Iranians don't, because they haven't invaded another nation in centuries. Really, we should be giving them all our nuclear material, because they seem to be the most responsible players out there. But there we go. We're in this point where this big object, Ariel, that Shakespeare apparently called it. And of course, Shakespeare really was just a movement, because Shakespeare was just bringing together all of the best works of Britain, and they were brought together by Sir Francis Bacon. And this is the conspiracy tale that I tell in Laughing Gas of what of of what Shakespeare really was. It was bringing together, it was just one story that was written by Sir Francis Bacon, which was the Tempest, and then he brought all of Britain's best kind of like best prose, really, all the best stories, and that were all written in kind of like anonymously, because anyone who, the Catholics would have hung, drawn and quartered anyone who wrote. Basically any sign of intelligence was seen as a crime. Any medicine was seen as witchery. Any herbalist was put to death. It was Henry VIII was the one who allowed herbalists to practice their crafts and deem them legal. They weren't witches. But before that, the Catholics would have just hung, drawn and quartered them, or killed them in the most brutal way. We were divided on this whole country was divided on every front. Any sign of intelligence, any type of kind of like anyone who was writing anything would have just been killed. They would have just been hung, drawn and quartered in the most brutal way. So everything had to be kind of done in kind of like in anonymity. I can never say that word, but anonymously. And so what Sir Francis Bacon did was he brought all the best works together and added one work himself, the Tempest, and defined grammar, which was not just English language as we understand it today, but it was grammar. It was defining past, present, future, possessive and non-possessive text, which was the fundamentals of contracts, in contractual law, to define ownership of who owned what, and future and present and past. And so this is what came out of this whole thing. So there's good and bad that came out of it all, really. We can see it in lots of different ways. In everything there's good, and in everything there's quite controversially bad. But so this is what's coming in now, and this is what's desperately being attempted. Is this invasive kind of this invasive maneuver to try and entice Iran into full-scale war. And of course, all our understanding of these systems, we've got the Hopi Indian and the red Kachina and the blue Kachina and the Mayan prophecies and all that sort of stuff, but most of all of our stuff is really coming from Mesopotamia. Is coming from ancient Persia. It's coming from these regions. It's coming from Iran. What we now call Iran. When we're talking about Zakai Sitchin and the 12th planet, the Anunnaki tales, which is what Star Wars is all about, is the retelling of all those tales. These are all these planetary systems that are being told here, and of course to try and get Iran to go under the wheels of, this is where they come from. That's trying to get a nation to invade that is overall very peaceful. It's going to be a difficult thing, but you never know, they might succeed, and obviously they're defending themselves now against this massive attack from Israel. And of course Israel hasn't got a mandate to do this because they're not being attacked. The only reason, Netanyahu has been saying forever that Israel is about 2 weeks away from annihilating Israel with nuclear bombs. It's never like they're being attacked. It's never that there's been an attack. It's always that these are proxies of Iran, but Iran is never directly attacking them. And Israel, on the other hand, has got a bit of a history of being quite aggressive to its neighbours. So we shall see what happens here. Personally, you know, and outside of, you know, I can say that in England, but of course outside of this country, looking in, outside of Britain and America, Israel, America, and Britain, and potentially and pretty much France, but mostly Britain, America, and Israel, they're one and the same beast. You know, I can be in this country and think and kind of sounding like I'm kind of got a finger of blame directed towards Israel, but I'm understanding it's Netanyahu and it's the kind of like the governments that are in control of this. You know, the people there are just kind of like, you know, they're led to believe that they've got this big iron dome, and clearly they haven't got this big iron dome. They've had the pretense of this iron dome, but clearly a real enemy. They have no iron dome. They've got no protection against this, and this is just, you know, Iran is not fully invading Israel. They're sending rockets here and there, but they're not. They could really, really, really go for it, and they're holding back because I'm of a mind, will know about this. And this is why I've talked about this for years. I wrote a book about this. I published my book, Laughing Gas, in 2011, describing everything that's happening right now in great detail, saying that this would all unfold. And the reason I wrote it was to try and prepare people so they would not get drunk. Hello, fella. Hello. 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 Yeah. So I'm just hoping that you know, the Laughing Gas, basically it brings it down to this realization that the message I got when I went out to South America and I drank ayahuasca and I kind of opened up my corridor in connection with the gods is that unprecedented was for me not to worry about my world, that unprecedented peace will be waged on this planet. But of course it's quite an intense message seeing all this, and of course every time the reality of this comes home even more, like so many of my friends are absolutely fantastical Trump fans, just believe that Trump's the absolute second coming, and of course so many in America just believe that Trump's the absolute second coming and that the golden escalator is about to appear. And then this all unfolds and he just becomes so much more redneck and does everything he said he's not going to do. And like why would we be surprised? You know, well, I wouldn't be surprised, but I mean, I've been telling you this for ages, that as soon as he comes into power, this is, you know, he openly says it, go for the nuclear sites first, blow up the nuclear reactors, spew nuclear waste everywhere, punish them for even thinking about having the intellectual capacity that we have. They're below the table, they're below the white man, they're below the American, they're filth, they're scum, they're the rubbish of the world, they're absolute. They are not allowed to have the intelligence that we have. They're below the table. They're the filth, they're the scum of the world. They cannot possess intelligence. They're below the table to even know what intelligence is. They have to be treated, they have to be put down. They're the scum of the earth. They have to be executed. You've got to kill their kids, kill them, kill their wives, kill everyone. Just exterminate. They cannot have intelligence. They're below the table. They've got to be sent back to the Stone Age. You know, and that's where they're at with it. That's what our governments believe. That is what you call pure fascism, pure, unbridled, absolute fascism on unparalleled scales. We're not unparalleled. This is normal. This is what we've done for thousands of years. This is our modus operandi. Well, we've got a boat pulling out here. It's a bit of an interesting one. So anyway, so that's going on at the moment, and it's quite a scary situation. And whether Iran will take the bait and go for a full-scale attack, or whether they're going to wait till after the 2nd of July, because for me it could be the 2nd of July, obviously, it could be the full moon, it could be the neat moon, it could be the full moon after, and it could be the neat moon after that. It depends where, you know, it's like the needle of a compass. It depends where the exoplanet is, and where the moon is, and when the moon's closest to the exoplanet, that will be when the biggest activity it happens. And you can see this object is very, very, very close, and this doesn't race us but race past us. This is running almost on the same ecliptic as in the northern hemisphere now, but it's moving with us, it's tracking around with us, so it's traveling virtually at the same speed as us. And so it's not going to be, even though it's right there, you've got near 50 volcanoes simultaneously going off at the moment. It's all going down. And so it's a very, very big time to it's a it's a very big time to think about it's a very, very powerful time to be in peace, basically. And they're going to do everything they can to give you every reason to go into war right now. And that's why I'm heading down now to do my special ceremony to connect with the solstice. And because the solstice is not just the longest day of the year, it's not just when the axis of the earth and the axis of the sun are aligned. Thank you. Thank you. You're not going to be down Honey Street for the solstice? Yeah! Sorry, I'm just navigating around these. Unfortunately, when you're in awkward situations, you've got to give it more throttle because you've got no brakes on a boat. Well, I suppose you can put it into reverse, but to steer and navigate, you've got to be having thrust. And which means that sometimes you've got to pick up speed at the places where it looks the most precarious, and you really want to be going slowest. That's the time when you've got to give yourself a little bit of thrust and push yourself out of the situation, because obviously you can't it's just going to pile into things. So anyway, so this is a time to be waging peace. This is the time to be waging peace. So I want you to understand that, because I'm going to stop here, I'm going to end this video just up here. What you've got to be thinking about is, this is not just the longest day of the year, and it's not just the top point when the Earth's axis is aligned to the Sun's axis. It's not like that. They're both like that. Same on the 21st of December. Beyond that time, they're either like that sort of thing. But on the 21st of June and the 21st of December, they're exactly aligned. And it's obviously in the northern hemisphere. The northern hemisphere is closest to the sun, and the southern hemisphere is obviously furthest from the sun. But it's also the 21st of June is when, in my opinion, from all my calculations, is when we are at the front edge of the sun. If the sun's moving forward, which we don't have in our current astronomical model, we have no sense of where our sun is going. We have no cosmic direction. And so this is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time to think about your cosmic direction and where you're going in the grand scheme of things. And so that's what this is all about right now, is aligning with your cosmic direction. And so have a think about that. Have a think about where you're going, what you're doing. Think of like the Earth as the head of a bird, and the sun as the body. And right now, I guess it would be Venus as the kind of like the right wing, and Mars as the left wing at the moment, and probably Mercury as the tail. and none of the other planets are really where you've been led to believe they are. Unfortunately, there is no Pluto, there is no Uranus, there is no Neptune, and there is no Jupiter really. There is Jupiter, but they're all really the same thing. All these planets are really the same thing, but they're all reinvented every 84 years to keep you in this heliocentric model, in this 500-year-old antiquated model, which is really just the recreation of Aristotle's kind of like Earth's in the center of the universe and everything orbits around it. It's really just a recreation of that model. And it's not really as you understand it. The system doesn't really work as you understand it, or as we've been led to believe. And it's a really, really good idea to think about. You know, when you think about what you do when you're our sun is charging forward between Scorpio and Sagittarius, or should I say Scorpio and Sagittarius. And of course, when Earth is, I'm a Scorpio. I'm born November the 7th, and I'm a Scorpio. But of course, Earth isn't in Scorpio at that time. Scorpio is kind of like, when Earth is actually in Scorpio, is kind of like, well, it's kind of now. Well, it's kind of between Scorpio and Sagittarius. But of course, I'm a Scorpio, but in November, Earth isn't in Scorpio. But of course, think about what you're actually doing. For me to be Scorpio, think about what you're doing. You're not actually thinking about where the planets are on that day. From my perspective, being a Scorpio, what I'm actually thinking about is on November the 7th, or in November, for that whole period of that month that represents Scorpio, what would happen is the sun would rise, and it's not like your ascendant. It's not like we're looking at the sun and what's beyond the sun. The sun would rise and it would carry on going up, and then that band that exists below the sun and the horizon, looking out, you can't see the night sky because the sun is blinding you. So you're having to picture Scorpio sitting there between the rising sun and the horizon level. You can't see it because you're in the daylight sky. You can't see Scorpio, or I wouldn't be able to see Scorpio at that time. But I can picture it in my mind's eye. I'm not using any of the contemporary astronomics. You know, Kepler, Galileo, Isaac Newton. I'm connecting with where a star system is from my viewpoint. I'm not the Earth, the Sun. I'm connecting where the star system is after the sun's risen. So I'm not including any of our current orbital mechanics in that kind of like seeing that window. But nonetheless, I'm connecting my mind to the cosmos through that juncture. And when someone is reading your stars, that's what they're doing. They're connecting their mind to the cosmos. And in that, the cosmos is connecting to them, because we are all one. We're merging our consciousness by connecting our minds to that place. And that's what we've got to be doing right now in the solstice, is connecting our minds to that space. When the sun rises in the morning, try to connect your mind to that space. And of course, what might happen is I might not be able to post this video in time because it's getting close to sunset now. But nonetheless, it's a real time to make your cosmic connection, because picture that's where the sun is moving. That's where the sun is going, and the earth is sitting right in front of the forward motion of the sun at that point. And so try to connect to the cosmos, and so the cosmos can connect with you. And in that connection, invite in the healing that the earth needs right now, and what you'd like to, the help that you would, the assistance that you would like right now to bring that peace into to the earth right now. So think about all of that, and I'm going to leave it there, because I'm going to moor up here and say, honey in the heart, 1,000 thank yous, and make your big connection. Draw in the help and the assistance you think the planet needs, because Glastonbury begins on the 26th of June this year. It begins ironically on the new moon, on the Islamic New Year. And well, I'm not going to put too much into words here, but I'm a little bit worried about what might happen, because Trump and Starmer and Macron haven't got a mandate. I think you all know that. And I don't know what they're going to do about that. And I'm quite concerned about that. So I'm putting big golden rings around the earth. I'm inviting help and assistance, and asking for Great Spirit to help in this time, to bring peace and awareness, and ask you all to do the same, and to be vigilant and be aware, and forewarned is forearmed, and to invite in great help and assistance at this time, for whatever might happen, for whatever might unfold. Honey in the heart, 1,000 thank yous. Take care. Ciao.